That's been done. Okay. Let's do a podcast.
Let's do it.
Me. This is how we prepare every time.
You and me, baby, ain't nothing but mammals, so let's do it. I don't know why that's in my head.
I don't know either, because I've still got Why Can't You See Me?
I
think I might be a good
Is this in? Have we kept this in?
Oh, if we do, we'll still get to do the cue the music bit.
Okay. You give a quick I'll give a quick blast of whatever that band's called, Bloodhound Gang, and that awful song. You give a quick blast of Ghost, and then I'll say cue the music. You ready?
Okay.
You and me, baby, ain't nothing but mammals, so let's
a ghost.
Cue the music.
Most confused intro we've ever done. Hello and welcome to Steven Musically, a show that specifically deals with music and Steven Universe.
Yeah, okay, I'll think of a music question then, Dan. I tell you what, I watched almost the entire set of, I skipped some songs, of Stereophonics performing at a festival in Glasgow, and I thought, wow, what an underrated band they are.
Yeah, Stereophonics are great.
And they've got way more songs than people realise. They were playing songs and the entire crowd was singing along. And I was like, oh, I'm surprised people know this. And Jess was like, I know this song. I was like, oh, maybe, more. They've been around so long that I just think they have 8, 9 just solid tunes.
Yeah, I mean, the album tracks are usually really good too. They're a great band. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember when I first heard Mr. Writer. I love that song.
Oh, what a tune.
Yeah, it's powerful. Anyway. What a weird sort of what a weird intro we gave you guys, but I think bit modelled.
Well, the show does. The big show logo. There's no intro on the so I think it's a unique intro on Steven Universe, and we gave it a unique intro on Steven University.
Sure, okay, I'll take that.
Yeah,
that almost makes it seem intentional. So I'll
yeah,
all right.
Yeah.
Carry on.
So instead of you just having the Ghost song in your head and me having
Bloodhound Gang,
do it like they do on the Discovery Channel.
That's a terrible song, but I will say Bloodhound Gang do have some good songs.
And 3 Lines, which are the 2 songs stuck in my head.
I think you're underrating Bloodhound Gang. I think, like the Stereophonics, they've got more hits than you imagine.
That's fair. Okay, I'll give you that. My favourite band to debate with you is Alien Ant Farm. Because you get really wound up that everyone only knows their cover of a Michael Jackson song and movies.
It's such a shame because they're so much better than that.
I've never heard anyone so passionately defend Alien Ant Farm.
I love Alien Ant Farm. They're amazing.
And just like the movie.
Shut up.
Anyway.
But no, but I can name very quickly going back to Bloodhound Gang. I can name several pretty big, known Bloodhound Gang songs.
Like what?
Foxtrot Uniform Charlie Kilo.
Those were just words, mate.
You don't know Foxtrot Uniform Charlie Kilo? That's a great
song. I
song.
might if you play
and
it.
Fire Water Burn. That's another really good one. The Ballad of Chasey Lane. Oh, Chasey Lane. And they did another one years later, I think, called maybe it was around the same time as Ballad of Chasey Lane. The when they were making fun of dance music.
Oh, I think I remember that one too. Okay.
Bloodhound Gang had some hits.
That was some music chatter. I'm sure we will digress back at some point. The episode, The Big Show, is a VH1 Behind the Music archive band footage style compilation where Steven is using Greg's camera to document the early days of Sadie Killers. We see them practicing. We see Steven show them to Greg. Greg comes along to watch them. Mm-hmm. They're like, hey, Greg, will you be our manager? Buck tells him he taught him everything he knows, which is just amusing. Actually, I've missed out. So while they're practicing, Sadie's mum comes down and sort of seems like she's going to interfere, but then backs off and delivers one of my favourite comedy lines this show has ever delivered. this made me laugh so hard. As she's going back up the stairs, she yells back, "Let me know if any of you kids want to stay for dinner. I'm making a salad that is mostly cheese."
Yes!
I laughed so hard at that. I thought that was such a funny joke.
I also laughed at that. That's a great line.
It's a brilliant joke. So they do. So Greg comes along. They're like, "Should we be he says about being the manager. They then perform in front of him, and Kiki sort of points out, "It is Kiki, isn't it?"
I'm sorry?
Confused between her and her sister. It is Kiki, isn't it?
Yes.
In the band.
Yeah. Oh wait, no. No, it's Jenny.
Jenny, right. Jenny points out that, when they're rich and famous, they'll have really kick-ass staging. To which I went, well, I mean, your manager's got a couple of millions just sitting there, which they then luckily address in the next scene, and Greg buys him loads of equipment. He gets him a gig. They go to the gig. Sadie's like, "Oh, Mum's there in a disguise. God, she can't keep away." They give a kick-ass performance. Turns out it's not Sadie's mum in disguise. It's Greg's friend who helped them book the gig. She tells them they can play there again anytime they want.
It's a great gig.
And Greg... so everyone's happy, but Sadie's a little bit sad that her mum didn't get to see the gig like she thought.
I think it's what's really good. You sort of skip. There's a scene in the middle when there's 3 scenes involving Sadie's. Oh, not really involving Sadie's because the third one's a bluff. But there's the initial one, which is the cheese salad line. Then there's the moment later on when she shows up while Greg and them are planning the Empire City gig, and she's like, "Oh, and I can rent a van, and we can get your equipment in, and all this stuff." And then she's sort of remembering very directly the lesson learned in the episode Sadie's song about.
She doesn't remember it. Sadie points it out. Sadie's like, "Oh, this is my thing."
That's true, but okay. She remembers in the first instance when she backs off and goes to make her cheese-based salad, which I agree with you, by the way, was just one of the best lines. Yeah, you're right. Sadie points it out that second time because she does get a bit carried away. But she does obviously then think back to the conversation, knows how important it is to Sadie, and does genuinely learn and backs away to the point where she doesn't even come to the gig. And I think that shows really interesting character growth that we don't usually get on show. And we've complimented the show for this so many times, it feels like I'm just repeating myself. Like, you could probably take a clip from a previous episode of Steven University, insert it here to cover what I'm about to say.
But I thought that with this as well, so I think it's worth saying.
Yeah, which is that, like, so few shows will carry that level of character growth and continuity for side characters. I mean, there are shows on television that don't carry that level of continuity and character growth for their main characters, let alone, a side character parent that we've seen 3 or 4 times in the show. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Barb has not appeared enough times to need a character arc, yet she's had one, and she's grown, and she's evolved, and, like, I cannot express how incredible that is. There are shows... I mean, there are different levels of it. There are shows that don't even involve their main characters week to week. Then there are shows that involve their main characters, but their side characters don't ever change. In The Simpsons, like, no one changes. But, like, I guess in, like... I try to think like another example. Like in Bob's Burgers, you sometimes see some growth in the main characters, but the side characters, like Teddy, isn't changing. Teddy's going to sit around that restaurant eating burgers for the rest of his life until he has a heart attack. So but like then there's this, which is just another level altogether, which is that they're working on so many levels, and no character isn't worth basically the ethos in this production office seems to be no character isn't worth exploring, and no character isn't worthy of developing over time. Maybe we won't get to them for months and months and months, but that's fine. We just need to follow up and make sure that we're paying off the things we're setting up. And while I would not have criticized them at all for never really dealing with Barb again after Sadie's song, no, they've gone to the trouble of basically coming back to that story and giving it an addendum, essentially, and evolving it. And it also fits in perfectly with the story we've had already of Sadie that's been tangential to that, which has been Sadie realizing that she's stuck in a dead-end job and wants more for herself. So when you tie all those stories together, you get a really compelling episode here, which is really focused on Sadie's acceptance of this is what her life is now, and that she can do something that she's passionate about for it, but also that old niggly old ways thing of like, I just don't want my mum getting involved. And like she says it to Greg early in the episode, I'm just waiting for her to try and get her claws into it. Like she's still fearful that her mother's going to do that, because I guess there's been no real opportunity since Sadie's song to prove that Barb won't get too meddly in her life. Does that make sense? Yeah. Like, this is the first real opportunity since then for Bob to interfere. So this is Sadie still having that fear in the back of her mind of, I think she's going to try and meddle. I think it's great. I think it's really well done. I love the way it ties into that character progression, especially for Barb, because Sadie, you expect it, and it's been part of the show for months and weeks now. The Barb stuff really surprised me on my first viewing.
I love it. I think it's a brilliant episode. I think this is one of those things like Gemcation and one that came after that. I can't remember which. Oh, like Kevin Party. This is one where I will admit there's a personal reason, which is I really love those kind of documentaries. I love seeing footage of bands in their early days. I even sent Daniel footage of the Arctic Monkeys and one of their first gigs just mere weeks ago.
It's true.
I did, yeah. And like apparently there's an amazing, even though they're not, there's disagreements on them as a band, but apparently there's a documentary about 30 Seconds of Mars and like the business of music, which is meant to be fascinating. Foo Fighters Back and Forth is a really good one.
So I think the Metallica one is fascinating. Some kind of monster.
The Metallica one, jeez.
I mean, that is an experience to watch that movie. Whether you like Metallica or not, watch that movie. It's insane.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
There's Strong Enough to Break, which is a documentary about Hanson breaking away from their labels, which isn't really officially available anywhere, but someone's divided it into 11 parts and put it on YouTube. So, I don't
think I've watched that. But when you described, what's it called?
It's called Strong Enough to Break.
Doesn't that sound like a Linkin Park documentary?
Possibly, yeah.
Like if you told me there was a Linkin Park documentary, it was called Strong Enough to Break.
Well, it's because Hanson, their third album, if this hasn't come up on this podcast before, big Hanson fan, their third album, Underneath, starts with a song called Strong Enough to Break, which is about them breaking away from a mainstream label. Anyway.
Good for the Unbot boys.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Oh, it was one of the best decisions they ever made. They've managed to build a career, no matter what you say, from that.
I think career is a stretch,
mate. They tour the world every other year.
They've found a weird cult following of people that really like what they do, and good for them.
It's not a cult. How's it a cult following?
Because you are the only person I have ever met that gives a shit.
But I'm not though, because they toured the UK last year.
No. Let me repeat my sentence. You are the only person I have ever met that gives a shit. Suggesting that they have got a very small percentage, but it is there. They've got a small but dedicated fan base. It's enough to fill 6 arenas across the UK, once every 2 years or whatever.
Well, but
they're not in the charts anymore. They don't sell enough records to be charted. So,
I believe Finally It's Christmas, their Christmas song last year, charted.
Where?
Anyway,
63.
This isn't meant to be about Hanson. I believe it's charted in the UK, I think, and I think it charted in the US.
63.
I might be wrong. Huh?
67.
Well, you just looked up.
No, I'm asking. Where were they? 63, 67, somewhere in the hundreds?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know. Are you looking it up now? Feel free to.
You know what? I should. What was the song?
It was, just check out their discography, but it was Finally It's Christmas was the lead single from their Christmas album, which I think had the same name.
81. It charted.
There you go. Charted.
81.
That's all I need.
And it didn't chart in the UK, you'll be happy to hear. Only charted in the US. 81.
Charted.
Thus proving my point.
That's what I care about. Anyway, this podcast is not going to be about Hanson. If anyone else likes Hanson, let me know in the comments below. My point is, I really love that style of documentary. I hit my mic. I'm sorry. So I was just the minute it started, I was like, oh, I'm going to be into this, and I was. Here's a fun theory for you, Dan. You ready for this?
Go on.
It is a collection of archival footage. Yeah?
Yes.
There's everything to suggest that this episode, technically, takes place before Lars of the Stars. So when Steven says to Lars, Sadie's band is doing really well, he could be referring to this.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'll buy that.
It doesn't add anything, but I'm just...
No, I think it does add something. It makes his sentence make more sense. If they were simply playing in garages... Then again, how does he say it? Does he say the band is doing really well, or does he say Sadie's doing really well? I suppose it depends on how he phrases it.
I think, doesn't she say her band is doing really well and then show Lars a photo?
Might be, yeah, might be.
But it could still mean that they're in the... Because Stephen's definition of doing really well could be they're sounding great in the basement.
Yeah. Do you want to know, Chris, do you want to know a bit of triv?
Is it about Hanson?
It might be.
Yeah.
Do you want to know the year a single that Hanson released last charted anywhere in the world? Because actually, looking at it, that Christmas one was the album's charting position. Do you want to know the last time a Hanson single charted anywhere in the world?
Well, I would guess 2003, because I would guess none of the singles have charted since Underneath, and that was probably Penny and Me.
You were absolutely right with one exception. So Penny and Me was the last one that charted in multiple countries, but for some bizarre reason, a song called Go charted at 44 in the UK in 2007. So basically,
there was a big
10 years ago was their last time they had a single in the charts, Chris.
You're
still going to tell me they're a massive thing that they're not a cult thing?
I never said they were massive. I don't agree with the use of the word cult in their instance. They still appear on telly. They still appear on radio. They have had the occasional album chart. And 10 years ago, Dan, Go charted. Go is a track off their fourth album, The Walk. And that did get a big push in the UK. Yeah. That's a Hanson day.
I don't understand how. I have no problem. You can like Hanson as much as you like, but you have to acknowledge that they have carved out a little cult following that has kept them going, and that's great. They're making money, doing what they love. I totally respect and love that, and they found their audience. That's wonderful. I don't understand why you're insisting it's more than that. I don't know what grounds.
No. It is because to me, I know they're really like people don't want to hear us debate Hanson.
I think they do.
Know
Chris.
that they've played things like V Festival. They've played festivals, and they've played decent side shows.
People pick up.
Me,
loads of bands play festivals. That's
but no. But to me, the term cult suggests this like handful of really passionate I don't know. I just don't.
That's exactly what it is. If you're a band that are playing and doing gigs and releasing albums enough to sort of continue doing that, but you're not charting anywhere, I don't know how else you would describe that.
Well, just a small following. I don't get where the term cult following comes in.
Because that's exactly what it is.
But a cult is not defined as something with a small number of passionate fans. Well, I suppose that is
that's pretty much the definition of. I mean, I'll read you the description. A cult following is a group of fans who are highly dedicated to a work or culture. It doesn't even specify. Oh yeah, okay, you go. It is said someone has a small cult. Sorry, I'll be rephrase this. It is said to have a cult following when something is small but very passionate. So the fan base is small but passionate.
Yeah. Okay. Fine. You win the Hanson debate. Can we talk about Steven Universe now?
No, Chris. So now you've conceded. I'll take it. I just couldn't understand how you were refuting the idea of them being a cult. Like cult following.
That's not. I mean, if you read black and white factually, the definition, I cannot argue with you, and therefore I have conceded. But conceding isn't enough. You want me to go into detail of why I've conceded and go, oh, you've conceded. That's fair enough. No, I just don't understand why you didn't want to... Well, if I've succeeded and that's enough, why ask a follow-up question? But fine.
What follow-up question did I ask?
You literally went, you've succeeded, that's enough. And then you went, I just don't understand why you wouldn't see it, or something like that. And I
was explaining why I made it a thing.
Oh, right, okay.
I wasn't continuing the debate.
So, yeah, once you read the definition, I can't argue with you, hence why I've conceded. But that was not necessarily my interpretation of the word cult, but clearly from your Wikipedia, dictionary, whatever you've read from, the definition matches. So
there you go. Got it from Google, Chris.
They've had some tunes, is my point.
Anyway, welcome back to Handling Hanson, the podcast where we...
You've caused this. You know I get riled up when people shit on Hanson. This is all your own doing.
I know. It's just like, it's you know what it is? It's the Jack in a Box. I know that the thing I can push ever to just make you pop is just Hanson. Just shit on Hanson and just watch it happen.
At least their biggest song was written by them and not a cover of another artist like Alien Ant Farm.
But the thing is, I'm under no illusions. I know I'm like the only person. My frustration is that is the case for Alien Ant Farm. They're in the exact same position. They had a hit that doesn't represent the wider work that they've done at all.
Yeah.
And I just got to deal with the fact that I'm part of a small group of people who appreciate a wider spectrum of it. But the difference, Chris, is you seem under this weird illusion that they're this huge act. For Hanson.
No. My issue has only ever been that it's exactly what you've just described with Alien Ant Farm. It's when people say they've only got one song, or they say, are they still around? And there are 7 albums worth of brilliant music that people just will never listen to because they assume that. And it's when people say, like, this makes me laugh. And you get this with bands like Busted as well. When we were seeing Hanson, people were like, oh, is it just going to be you and a bunch of, like, 12-year-olds? And it's like, well, no, because the 12-year-olds were fans in 1997 when they released Mbop. Those 12-year-olds are now 20 years older. So of course they're not going to be 12. They're going to be 32. Really, that winds me up as well. Because it doesn't make any sense as an argument. I'm so sorry we've digressed so much. But no, it's exactly that. They have much better songs and a much wider breadth of music than Mbop would suggest, which I admit is probably the case for Alien Ant Farm.
Oh, it's 100% the case, and that's the problem. Is it's like I have to also acknowledge, and it's exactly how I would describe Alien Ant Farm. It's like, yeah, they've got a cult following. It's like there's a group of people who were either checked out at the time or have since discovered the back catalogue of really awesome music that they've created and have been shown up to gigs and supporting them. They had an album that they released by funding it on what's the music sort of Kickstarter called? I forget what it's called.
Pledge? Is it Pledge?
Pledge Music? Yeah, Pledge Music. They had an album funded through that a couple of years ago where that cult following literally just sort of paid to have a new album produced because the Alien Ant Farm was struggling to... They had disagreements with labels and stuff, and it was becoming difficult for them, and they wanted the freedom to just do what they wanted. They did it that way. But again, under no illusions, yes, they could fill a few arenas across the UK once every couple of years. But it's a cult following. In those moments, it's easy to forget. You go, look, there are. You know what it's like? It's like Tobias Fugay in the first few seasons of Arrested Development. There are dozens of us, dozens. It's like, have you ever met anyone other than me that cares about anything Alien Ant Farm have ever done?
No.
I feel the same about you.
And I am legit, and it is purely that we are both so passionate about both of these bands, but I am so sorry to anyone listening to this that we have digressed into this this huge... Because no one else will enjoy it, because no one else likes those bands. But if you are a fan of either Hanson or Alien Ant Farm...
Right in the comments, there are dozens of us. Dozens.
My favourite Hanson album is This Time Around. And I think my favourite Hanson song is A Song to Sing. So if you're a fan of theirs, comment below and give us your thoughts.
What's your favourite
Alien Ant Farm album, Dan?
Yeah, it's probably True Ant. All their albums are puns on the word ant, by the way.
And your favourite... That's not helping them. And
no,
your favourite song?
Oh, it's probably Tia Lupe.
There you go. So, yeah. Right, so...
That's really hard. I really like Never Meant as well.
Hey, I only named one, so, I've restricted myself. So you can't sneak two in.
Why did... I'm just looking at their, like... I'm looking at their albums just going, like, why? Why with the puns? Transient, up in the ant...
To be fair, Hanson have a beer called Mbop, so they're not adverse to puns.
That's true.
Anyway, What were we even talking about?
Fuck knows. There was a TV show we were watching at some point.
I feel like this episode needs to be at least 55 minutes long to make up for this.
Right, let's go back to it.
So the Sadie's mum stuff, it's all done. The idea that this could have taken place before is really cool. I just really enjoyed this episode. I thought it was really entertaining. I thought the visual style of it really added to it, and I loved the cleverness because this is I think legitimately what I was going to say. When Greg appears, you're just like, oh fuck yeah, of course this episode has got Greg in. Like that makes so much sense. That's really exciting for the episode. Like it just having Greg in it and then his involvement in the story moving forward is just really fun and really interesting, and I was really excited to see Greg.
And it's cool that like Greg had this dream to be a musician, and while that didn't work out for him, this idea that he can, with his money, give the gift of that to this upcoming band and be involved. So sort of by proxy, getting to live a little bit of that life he wanted to live. You know, I think that's really cool. And I think that the way they've weaved all this together, because when you think about all the parts that had to move to put this in place, so you have Greg dozens and dozens of episodes ago getting all this money through a deal to sell his song to like a burger chain or something, through Marty, who is Sour Cream's dad, by the way, who is in this band.
Yeah.
And so he's got, on one hand, he's got this money. Then in a separate sequence of events, we have an episode where Sadie shows she can sing, but can't bring herself to get too into it because her mum keeps this clutch on her life. Then you get her then you did a series of episodes showing her being unhappy at her job. Then you finally remove Lars from the situation, which pushes her to breaking point. And you also, separate to that, have the episode before Lars goes away, where she meets the cool kids and gets on with them, and they establish that. And then suddenly, all these moving pieces suddenly together, and you've got Sadie's in the band with the cool kids, because she's abandoned the job that she hates, and Greg, with his whole music backstory, and getting the money through a deal that Sour Cream's dad, it all winds together and creates this incredible circumstance here, like this episode. And when you think about all the different moving parts that lead to this, you just think, this show is so intricate. It's almost hard to believe they don't write scripts.
That's nuts.
The storyboarding, not storyboarding, sorry. The plotting and planning here is insane. I don't understand, like.
But how much of that in what you've just described do you think is deliberate? And how much is, because we've done this, we can do this?
That's hard to say, isn't it? I'd say it's probably 60-40. Like, I don't know if they thought giving Greg the money would necessarily lead to that as early as they did. But bringing the Sadie stuff in makes so much sense. Like, it's hard to imagine they didn't pre-plan all the Sadie's element of this. Like, setting up that she can sing months ago, years ago, really. You know, it's Sadie's song. It's hard to imagine this wasn't the goal. In many, many ways. Maybe the Greg of it all was a bit more happenstancey, but it's just so perfect. I find
because they've not done too much with the Greg is a millionaire plot, have they? Other than that one particular episode where they went to Empire City. So
no, there have been several instances where he's referenced it, but they've not done anything plot-wise with it,
which is interesting. Like, so is it just a device to give them options to do whatever they want? Human-wise as well, like I don't know, like to remove a limitation potentially from some of those stories because you just go, well, Greg's a millionaire.
Because there was nothing to say that. Right, so the initial plot device was give Greg some money so he can take a trip to Empire City and spend his time with Steven because he doesn't care about money. What Greg wants is to spend some time with his son. You know, that's what matters.
Yeah.
And that's the part of the song that they sing in that episode. And it's the catalyst for the story of Mr. Greg, which is a great episode. But they didn't need to give him millions. They could have just given him, a few hundred, like 100,000 or something, enough to like cover a really lavish trip and also help revive his, his car wash business or something. Do you know what I mean? Like, they didn't need to make him a millionaire, But it has facilitated a couple of other episodes. If you remember, I think is it called Alone at Sea? The episode where Lapis and Jasper confront each other, where they're out on the boat.
Yeah.
He buys the boat.
The buying of the boat. Yeah, I think doesn't that come fairly soon after the Empire City one? But I might be wrong.
I honestly can't remember where it comes in the run in relation to Empire City, but it's certainly somewhere between there and now. That much I can say with certainty, Chris. I have calculated that.
Is it not even before? Because isn't them Stephen and Lapis flying over? Oh no! Did they fly? Did they not fly?
They fly over Empire City in the episode where she decides she's going to stay on Earth after she's released from that situation with Jasper, and then there's a big chunk of episodes that involve one of them involves Mr. Greg, where they actually visit Empire City, and then there's the episode where Jasper returns.
Right. Fair enough.
But yeah, it's been the catalyst for a couple of stories. That's for sure, that he's rich. So I don't know. It's interesting. I do kind of love it though that he's rich and he still lives in his van. Like, it's just kind of adorable.
Yeah, it is very entertaining.
Yeah, it's like it's a good character piece. You're right though. I don't know what the initial intent of doing that was, because they didn't need to do that. He could have just had enough money to go on the trip. You know what I mean? They didn't need to establish that he was a millionaire. So that's interesting.
So you love the song Ghost?
I do.
What is it about that you? Yeah, what is it about that you really love? Because I enjoyed that song. I never really, with the exception of Stronger Than You, or whatever it's called, which I adore. And I did really like that. I think I preferred the first Sadie Killer song. It was a bit rockier. But I don't necessarily connect in quite the same way as you to the music. So what is it about this particular song is it just because it's catchy, or
I think it's just a really well written sort of rock song. Like if there was an album of these songs, if Sadie Killer and the Suspects released an album, I would get it. They do. There's 3 songs now actually. They've got Working Dead, which I thought was great because it really establishes the tone of the band. Then they did Sadie
that's
Killer.
The one I really liked.
Yeah, then they did Sadie Killer and the Suspects. We got a glimpse of that earlier in this episode, which is it's like a 30-second bit of a song. It's not a full song. And then we got pretty much the entire of Ghost, which I just really like the way that the music speeds up and slows down. I like the tempo of it. I think it's really cool. It's very catchy because it's and also like when you combine that with the visuals and the staging, I just think if a band was to do an act like that, that'd be awesome. Like where the lyrics are like represented on what's happening on stage. Like it's a full on show. It's.
Oh, I'm sure that's out there. It's just not. Bands that we're aware of, kind of thing. I'm sure that though is a thing. And
sticking to the idea of a theme though, and like doing a whole shtick like that, and like this idea that she comes onto the stage from a coffin and she's like, no one can, why can't you see me? And she's like waving at everyone's face and they're not reacting. I think I might be a ghost. That whole like the way it's the speed up and slow down, and then it's like the visuals combined. And I just think to myself, like if I saw a show like that, I'd be blown away. And especially, I love the moment where she's like trying to get their attention and she's throwing like sort of like sparkles at them almost. And then she does it with Jenny, and Jenny like her eyes widen a little, like she felt the presence. And I was like, what a nice little attention to detail. Like this is a ghost reaching out.
Oh.
And there's
the attention to detail in both what the band are doing and the animation is amazing. Because you know what I noticed?
Go on.
Before she, and I swear this seems to be the case. Like I don't think I'm imagining this. Before she lets the microphone fall to the floor,
I know exactly
she turns it off.
Yeah, she does.
Like.
Yeah,
it's amazing. Like the attention to detail in that is beautiful,
stunning. You see her turn the button. Yeah, I didn't notice that the first time I watched this, but I noticed that watching it on this occasion. She slumps to the floor and she's about to drop the microphone. But if you drop a microphone along the floor and it rolls, you'll hear that, and you get a bit of feedback or whatever. So you can see her finger very clearly turn off the mic before she lets it go. Like it's really good attention to detail. I mean, they've always made an effort as well when they're doing songs on the show that the fingers on anyone who's playing guitar are in the right positions for the chords they're supposed to be doing.
Oh, that's cool.
They always do that on this show. They make a really big effort. They're even the strings that are vibrating or even the strings that are supposed to be vibrating as well. Because it'd be so easy to just animate a general strum and all the strings going. Yeah. But obviously when you're playing actual guitar, you don't always strum all the strings. Some sounds require you to sort of skip or miss certain strings and stuff. So, like, if you watch Buck's guitar during this episode, you'll see that he's like, for certain chords, he's only strumming the top 3 or 4 strings, and like for some of them, he's strumming them all. And you watch his fingers; they move to the right positions. The attention to detail in the music in this is stunning, and that's been the case throughout Steven Universe. So even in the early days, when Steven was whipping out his ukulele, his finger positions were in the right places. Strumming looked exactly right. It was perfectly done.
That's awesome,
and that's really hard to do for a couple of reasons. Generally speaking, getting like a Korean animation studio to do that from your storyboards, it's pretty tricky, because like having to sort of be that precise about where you need fingers at certain times and actually have them do that and not just do the cheap easy thing of just general guitar playing motions must be difficult to coordinate, because they don't necessarily have the songs or the chords or know how the instruments are supposed to be played. So like the back and forth that it must take to get those things right, that cannot be an easy thing to communicate to an animation studio in Korea. I don't again marvel at this show's like attention to detail and its ability to weave these stories. It's really cool. And also, like, obviously when Sadie lifts up, what I love is you see both shots. You see the shot from the audience's perspective where she literally looks like she's floating up, and then you see it from the other side and you can clearly see
we've got
the
rope
harness
and stuff,
and it's just really well done. And what I also love is the whole episode is in camera, and it looks like the song isn't, but the song is, because Greg establishes he's got a bunch of cameras in to film the show. So
yeah, I love the subtle shift as well in picture quality when it cuts to one of the other cameras filming the show.
Yeah. So from Steven's sort of grainy old camera, which I love, by the way, that they set up his reason for using it is that all early band footage is grainy.
which is true.
It's true, but like that won't be the case in years to come. When bands from this era go back, it'll be HD, because you can get HD on your iPhone now. So
yeah, but it will though, because the HD that people will be watching on their tellies will be so much more.
Oh yeah, everything will be in like 4K or whatever, 20K.
Were you hoping? I was hoping at the end, not for it to necessarily. Well, I was hoping it would be her mum and Sadie would be thrilled she was there. But I think the twist we got and the lessons Sadie learned was so much stronger than that.
Yeah.
But I do hope in the future it turns out that she was there.
That's that's interesting.
Because I just don't like the idea of her not seeing it. And I can't help but feel, even though she's learnt that lesson, she's probably upset about it. Like, I had visions of her driving away from the exchange, outside the car wash when she delivered the equipment. I had visions of her just driving away, welling up. Like crying. There's no way she's happy about it. She appreciates it. She understands it. But it still must emotionally hurt her. So I hope they address it again and we have an episode where Sadie shows her mum what she's learned. Or
that's a really good point.
Or you have Sadie show her the video of the performance and say, "I'll come along to the next gig." Like, I hope we see that.
Yeah, because I
hope we see.
Because I suppose the focus of this episode was Sadie learning that lesson that while she doesn't want her mum to interfere, she does want her to be part of her life in a more reasonable way, in a less involved, like in a less overbearing way. So it's not, I blanket want you out of this stuff. That's the lesson that Sadie is learning here. She's learning that blanket out of this stuff is really not fair on you, and I kind of you're my mum. I want you to, see what I'm doing with my life. I want you to be part of it. But because of your previous history of overbearing, I've drawn a line too far down. I've said complete blanket. So Sadie learning that lesson is really valuable. And you're right, it's more powerful that her mum did not attend, or she at least did not know her mum attended. I think that is the more important element, because otherwise she doesn't learn that lesson, and that's the key.
Yeah,
but you're right. There is another side to this story. Yes, this episode focuses on Sadie and her situation here, but it would be very interesting. The other side of that story, you're absolutely right, must be a pretty heartbroken mother who's been not being permitted to be part of her daughter's life, and she understands why, but still got to hurt. And then there's this other idea of, wouldn't it be nice to think that she did sneak in, but she was subtle, particularly just for the gag of it, actually, because there's that bit when Sadie says, like, oh, she's so obvious. I like the idea that there's someone in the crowd that looks nothing like Sadie's mum that is Sadie's mum. And that she did have a really good disguise and got away with it. But then again, if she did that, like, then do you go, oh, well, you didn't learn anything then? Like, you know, I wanted you to give her space and you still showed up even though she asked you not to. Yes, that hurts, but do I want you to listen or not? Like, that's a tough call. I don't know where I stand on that. I think I'd like to think she was there, but I think Sadie would be mad if she found out that she was, because she specifically asked her not to.
Yeah, because it lessens that her sadness. I don't know. I think maybe and it would be weird to go back to and reveal. So I think maybe you just have her invite her to another gig or something. But I just want some acknowledgement of it because, like I say, I think that's bound to be rough for... Is it Barb? It is Barb, isn't it?
Barb, yeah. I mean, they do a really good idea of, like... They do a really good thing of, like, can we make sure the next gig is in Beach City, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah, it was really nice. I love, as well, that scene between Greg and Sadie, where Greg's like, my parents weren't interested at all. Like, it's awesome that she is interested. I thought that was a really powerful scene.
And again, Greg's great, because he's so good at relating to these kids. But but he's actually he's really wise. He's very, do you know what I mean? Greg is an underrated character in this show. He is often the voice of, you know what? He is the most dependable person in this show. He's always level-headed. He's always thoughtful. He's always empathic. He's always able to see things from everyone's sides. He always gives great advice. Like, he is an unsung hero of Steven Universe.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
I think he's such a great character. In moments like that, you go, yeah, he gets it. He understands why Sadie feels like she does, but he also sees it from Barb's side, and he's going to advise Sadie that maybe let her in a little. Like, and that's, you know, appreciate that she cares. Like, you know, that's such good advice and so true, and probably something Sadie hadn't even thought of. And again, just Greg killing it. Like, he's the best. I love Greg, and it's funny because when the show first started, they sort of set him up as, like, you almost get the impression he's going to turn out to be like a bit of a schlubby kind of useless Homer Simpson,
like a comic relief character.
Yeah, and like he's not that. He's so much more than that, and I think that's really cool. I think they've done a really good job of establishing him. Chris, though, did you notice someone in the crowd?
No. Who was in the crowd, Daniel?
Pearl's mystery girl, S.
Was she? Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, she was in the crowd for the gig, which I love because obviously last time we saw her, she was at the Kroll gig. So it's, yeah, I think that's awesome, right? Like, that's so cool.
Would have been better if Pearl was with her. This subtle hint that they've got a relationship going on in the background.
That actually, that is a nice idea. Actually, no, Pearl wasn't with her in the shot. You can freeze frame it though, and you can see that she is very clearly in the crowd. I think that's just a really nice touch that she's still about.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. The question now is, Chris, do I have any other triv?
Oh, was that your triv? Subtly woven in.
Well, I mean, that is triv, I suppose. It might even be in the triv.
But that wasn't you reading the triv and weaving it in.
No. That was because that was one of my favorite things from this episode, was when I watched it and then I went on the subreddit. And the subreddit was just littered with the image, you know, of the shot of the crowd with, like, zoomed in as much as possible to.
That's so cool.
To a very definable and very obviously present mystery girl, or S as she is known.
Love the notion that Buck can't tie a tie as well.
Oh, that's so funny.
So funny. And yes, we should get to Trib. I've determined this episode will be 55 minutes long to make up for.
Well, I think the Buck tie thing is cool because I love the idea that it's like, your dad wore a tie every day. It was a clip-on. It's like, of course, man, Dewey wore clip-ons. Of course he fucking did. Of course he did. Yeah. There's no way in hell he wore clip-ons. But also, actually, speaking of Buck, that you chuckled at that notion that, like he said, Greg taught him everything he knows. But what great continuity.
I knew it was linked. Yeah.
Back in Shirt Club, which was an episode we would have watched God, how long ago did we watch Shirt Club? What number episode of Shirt Club?
Years, Dan. I think.
Okay,
back when Hanson last charted.
So this is episode 142. Shirt Club was episode 47. So nearly 100 episodes ago, we established that Buck was going to take guitar lessons from Mr. Universe.
Which have clearly paid off.
Yeah, absolutely. And we literally never saw a frame of that happening, because again, we see the show from Steven's perspective. But it has been an underlying bit of continuity since, that the reason Buck can now play guitar is from Mr. Universe. And when we finally saw them in the same room, straight away it was referenced. It's a great gag. You told me everything you know. I know. But it also just, again, and that's one of those other, like, again, when I was talking about all those different things that weave together earlier, the other side of the Greg thing I didn't even mention was not only did he get the money, which allowed him to be the position here and have all the musical knowledge that helps him be the manager here, but also fucking he taught Buck how to play guitar. That's another thread I forgot about that also ran through to this, to culminate in this. This is ridiculous planning.
It's awesome. It's fantastic.
It's insane how it all comes together. It's really cool. So, shall I get to the actual Triv, Chris?
Yeah, man.
Sunshine Justice, who is the friend of Greg's that books the gig. Do you want to know who she was voiced by?
Yeah.
American rock singer and songwriter Joan Jett.
That's awesome.
Isn't that great?
That's brilliant.
I didn't know that until because I don't know what Joan Jett's current speaking voice sounds like. I had no idea. So I only found that out after I watched the episode again, probably on the subreddit. I thought that's a really neat.
That's cool.
Yeah. So I thought that's a really cool thing. Actually, in the trivia, it does say Mystery Girl from Last One Out of Beach City makes a cameo appearance in the audience at the concert, but we've dealt with that. Greg reveals his parents hated his music when he was young. Should we touch on that slightly more than we have done? Do you think we'll ever do you think that was just him relating to Sadie, or do you think that's a story we might get to explore at some point?
I think it was, but it wouldn't surprise me if we did some Greg flashbacks pre-Rose, which actually would be pretty cool. I think see what Greg was like as a kid. I think
because he could relate he could relate his personality and his approach as a kid to like Stevens.
Yeah, exactly. I really like the episode with Marty and the breakdown of that relationship and stuff. So
that's the one where he meets Rose, isn't it?
Yeah, but like I think we complimented the stuff even before Rose appears. So like although she appears quite early, I think it's been proven that could work.
Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, the Mr. Universe years are all fascinating anyway, like because clearly like he was trying to break into music for a long time. Like, you know, he's got all these connections, and even she says like, "Oh, it's like your old space shtick," you know. And I love that line as well. I love that like Sunshine Justice is like, you know, you were ahead of your time, but these kids, they're now like they're what people want at this moment. Like sort of suggesting that they'll have more of a chance than Greg did, and I really like that notion because it sort of doesn't disparage Greg's music, but it also explains why maybe he didn't have the success he wanted. He was doing space rock before Bowie, basically, is the implication.
Which is a really cool notion as well.
Yeah. So yeah.
Wait, no, Bowie would have been about then, because that would have only been 20 odd years ago. So
yeah, I suppose. But then again, we are living in the weird gem-altered timeline.
I think it was more that he was doing Flaming Lips before Flaming Lips were a thing.
There you go. So yeah, with the exception of obviously the song scene, this entire episode is shot through Greg's old camera. As a stylistic choice for an episode, like I know we talked about how it relates to like other music documentaries and it gives the episode a vibe of that. Doing a first person sort of like hand cam episode of Steven Universe. If I'd have told you that was coming, if I'd have told you there's a found footage style episode of Steven Universe, how would you have felt about that versus the execution?
I'd have assumed it would be good, but I mean, I think we're all a little bit cursed from Sleep No More, which is a found footage episode of Doctor Who, which is awful. But there are plenty of good found footage stuff as well. So I think I would have been like, I don't think you can say, what would you have thought of that before seeing the execution, because my thought would have been, it depends on the execution.
Right. And how do you think it turned out, like, as a strategy for them getting across
brilliant.
the ideas?
But you couldn't do it every week, but mainly brilliant because of my bias to the music documentary thing.
Yeah, that's the most justified use of it, I think, you could have done. If it had just been a normal episode of Steven Universe, and Steven was like, "Hi, camera, I'm just wandering around the town, and let's see what scrapes I get into," and it was just a normal episode of Steven Universe, but it was found footage style, from his camera's perspective style, that would have felt really forced and weird, but this made so much sense.
They sort of did it with Rising Tide, didn't they? Wasn't that Ronaldo making a documentary?
Yeah, they did. You're absolutely right. But that was different because it was a sequence of events we'd already seen from Steven's perspective, and then it was Ronaldo's documentary he made alongside that happening. But you're right. Yeah, that's true. They have technically done it once before. I hadn't even thought about that. That's really true. Good memory. Rising Tides crashing skies. There you go. Let's see. Oh yeah, when Greg holds up his phone to his laptop and says, "Listen to this." First of all, I love the gag that, like, Greg's so stuck in the past. That's how you used to play people music from a distance. You play it through a phone, and then he's like, "Oh yeah, no, I'll just send you the link." So I love that. Number one.
Is the trivia going to say it's a reference to Back to the Future?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if it is, because I don't think he's booking anything. Isn't in Back to the Future. Isn't the joke that it's like a manager or something? But yeah, no, I did get that reference and thought that was cool.
I think isn't it say no? He's calling the original writer of the song to be like, that new sound. He's calling Chuck Berry.
Yeah, he's a cousin or something. He's like, "It's your cousin, Marvin Berry or something," and he's like, "Listen to this."
Yeah, he says, that new sound you're looking for? Listen to this. And then he holds the phone out. The idea being that then inspires Chuck Berry to actually write the song in question, which is the Bootstrap Paradox. And a very interesting thing. I love the Bootstrap Paradox. Best explained.
That makes me, just hearing about that clip makes me want to rewatch Back to the Future.
I know I love Back to the Future, but you know what's weird though? Referencing the Bootstrap Paradox made me want to watch the episode of Doctor Who. It opens with Who wrote Beethoven's Fifth? Ba 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 ba. Forget which episode that is, but that's one of Capaldi's absolute best moments.
That's Listen. I've named it like 3 times while you've been talking.
That's not in Listen.
Is it not?
No. Listen opens with him being like, "And who is watching?"
It's Under the Water and Before the Flood. Then
there you go. Yeah, it is. Second one.
Yeah.
No. Second part of that 2-parter. It's great. Anyway,
which I believe is Before the Flood.
There you go then. Yeah, it is, because then he goes back to Before the Flood. Yeah, it opens with the Doctor. You could look at that clip up on it, and in of itself, that clip works. Just the Doctor Who Bootstrap Paradox. There's a clip where the Doctor basically explains, sort of to no one really, almost to camera, the premise of the Bootstrap Paradox. And it's such a weird scene that the show would never normally get away with, but somehow it works with Capaldi. It almost makes you feel like the companion being explained something to by the Doctor. It's awesome.
I'd say watch that, because that's actually, it's as well as being a good scene. I love that 2-parter. I think it's one of the highlights of that season.
It's a really good 2-part.
The highlight. So yeah, I would check out. I think the first part's called Under the Water and the second part's Before the Flood. I know the second part's Before the Flood. I'm not sure, 100% confident I'm right on the first one. But that's season 8. Yeah, check that out.
2 episodes I watched relatively recently, like a couple months ago.
There you go.
Good stuff. Anyway, I think it's. Anyway, getting back to it, I think that because it uses the exact phrase "listen to this," I think that makes it more likely to be a reference to Back to the Future. But
that's fair. Yeah.
When Steven closes the footage, he looks directly down camera and says, "That's all, folks," which is obviously a reference to the old Looney Tunes outro. And it like sort of swipes in on his face, which is what they did as well. I mean, that's Steven Universe 101 anyway. But the fact they use it here to reference Looney Tunes, I thought works really well.
Yeah, I thought that was a nice touch.
One of the audience members in the crowd resembles the character Gluttony from the manga and anime Full Metal Alchemist. I didn't notice that the first time, but I'd heard that since and looked out for it the second this viewing, and did catch him. I thought that was pretty cool.
Okay,
nice. Cool. I love Full Metal Alchemist. Well, sorry, let me correct that. I love Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. Just want to clarify, because the original Fullmetal Alchemist is long, and I'm not saying bad, but long, and I do not have the fortitude to watch that many 100 episodes of a TV show. But I really thought Brotherhood, which is like a slightly more accurate to the original manga version of the story, slightly streamlined, so it's only like 5 seasons instead of like 100. It's much better. There you go.
Okay.
I think it's on Netflix in the UK if anyone's interested. It's a really good one. It's great. It's very dark, but there you go. Anyway, continuity-wise, they've got 2 other little references. Obviously, we reference Buck teaching him how to play guitar in Shirt Club, and Sadie and Bob obviously reference the events of Sadie's song. So that's just the 2 continuity trivs at the bottom. That's all the triv, Chris. All the triv.
Good triv. Like the triv.
Yeah, some good stuff. The Joan Jett one was my favourite, truthfully.
Yeah, I think that's awesome.
Because that's perfect.
I love it when they get just special extra guests and stuff. And yeah, it's perfect for this character in this episode.
100%. And it's perfect triv because it's the sort of thing that you would probably not notice without reading the trivia.
No. Yeah.
Because again, who knows what Joan Jett sounds like in the modern day?
Yeah, I've seen her do some interviews. Like I think she toured with Foo Fighters a few years ago.
But even if you saw her then, or you've seen her talk on an interview or whatever, would you know her voice well enough to have picked it out here?
Oh no! Well, I mean, I didn't pick it out, so no.
Yeah, this is my. I don't think.
But then I wasn't. Would. If you were to say to me, if you were to play me it and go, "This is a famous female rock star," and then you were to play the clip, I might get it.
Yeah, but you'd be given a lot of caveats there. Famous female rock star. How many famous female rock stars are there that would be of that age?
Yeah, but I mean, her age is not necessarily clear from her voice. And you'd guess famous. You'd know female. Famous, if I was being asked, I'd be able to put together. So all you're really telling me is rock star.
I don't know. I think age does play a fact because she doesn't sound like a young lady.
No, that's true.
So you'd probably be thinking back a bit further. That narrows it down quite a lot because, there weren't a huge.
I don't know. You got Joan Jett. You got Courtney Love. You got Stevie Nicks. You got
Yeah, I suppose
there's a few choices.
Yeah, that's fair.
So yeah, there we go. I feel we've given sufficient extra to make up for the appalling Hanson alien ant farm tangent.
And I honestly think that if there was any episode we were going to do that. I love that happened on the one where we literally at the beginning were like, we're going to talk about music as a joke, and then that really happened.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's hopefully it was. I think just because of the sheer oddity of 2 people getting passionate and debating Alien Ant Farm and Hanson, hopefully there was something in it. I'd love to find at least one other Hanson fan and one other Alien Ant Farm fan down below. But I have to wait and see if that occurs.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, not to be fishing for comments because I know a lot of YouTubers do that, but genuinely, if you're listening to this through iTunes and therefore you don't have the YouTube comment section, just go to the YouTube channel and make the effort. We want to hear from you. There are dozens of us.
Because it would be legitimately nice to talk to other fans.
Yeah. So it's for those of you who don't know, it's youtube.com/nothingbutstaticuk for those of you who listen to this through iTunes or Stitcher or Google Play. We're on Google Play now, Chris. That was a thing that happened within the last few months.
Fancy.
So there you go.
Exciting.
Yeah, very exciting.
Cool.
What else was I going to say? There's a Discord channel. Do they call it a channel? A Discord server? I don't know what the kids are calling it. I'll post the link on my Twitter and in the description of this video, so you can come and join us on Discord and have a chat. I've been chatting with some of the guys on Discord this week because this week a new bomb aired. I won't say the title of the bomb. Actually, the title of the bomb isn't in any way a spoiler. The bomb is titled "The Heart of the Crystal Gems." I don't know if that's a tease for you, Chris. Little tease there.
Do you want me to try and guess?
Actually, go on. I'm curious as to what you think that might refer to.
Well, either Stephen or Rose would be my guess, because those now Stephen, I would argue, is the heart of the Crystal Gems, and back then it was Rose. They are, at the core of the formation and the current existence of the Crystal Gems.
Well, yeah, so. But you're only like 6-7 episodes away from it, so
I know, it's crazy. It's so weird to me.
So the bomb this week, I've been chatting with some of the guys on the Discord because I only watched the first 2 episodes as they went out, and I've been saving the remaining 3, technically 4, to watch today with Nadia, my girlfriend. So that's what I'm doing after this. But people have been chatting on the Discord about it this week. There's not been a huge amount of chat, but like a few messages every day, just like a little tiny bit of back and forth, just see how everyone's getting
that's cool.
But it's weird now because we're in this weird position where people seem to give a shit what we think about stuff. Like, I got a message today on Reddit, someone just saying, like, just curious what you thought of last night's episode. And it's like...
bless, that's awesome.
It's incredible, but it's like, I haven't seen it yet, so I can't... I responded just like, oh, give me a few hours and I'll get back to you. But, like, just the idea that anyone gives a shit at all what we think about these episodes is mad. So, I mean, I think you're all insane.
Well, you're forgetting, though, they won't after we've dedicated 15 minutes of their time to Alien Ant Farm and Hanson.
But like, I love you guys for that so much, because it's really nice that you guys care enough to sort of like want to know what we think about stuff as it's happening, and in future that's what you'll get. I mean, I think probably after this bomb there's going to be a bit of a gap, and I reckon by the time up to this bomb, the Heart of the Crystal Gems bomb, will be done in this style, this format. I have a feeling that this podcast is going to go through a bit of a transformation at that point, though, because going forward, we'll be doing them as and when they air, and that's going to be interesting.
Yeah, and a fearful logistical nightmare. We'll be at a point to do that, and episodes will go up the week one of us is away or something.
I think we'll just have to do our best to get it up as soon as we can, and like hope
I'll tell you what, that'll be the promise. Is literally as soon as we can record.
But theoretically, though, Chris, this bomb that went out this week, we've recorded 3 times this week, so we could have already had the first 2 or 3 episodes of this bomb that have gone out this week ready and uploaded if we'd wanted.
Oh yeah. I'm not. It would just be typical, wouldn't it? Do you know what I mean? Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, it would just be typical that the first time that's possible is a time that's awful for one of us.
Yeah, like one of us is on holiday or something. Like, yeah, that'll be it. They'll announce that, because the theory is that this bomb takes us 2 episodes from the finale of the season. So that means there's 2 episodes left to go out to end the season. And knowing our luck, they'll go out while I'm in Japan.
Yeah, although we won't be caught up by the time you're in Japan anyway, will we?
We'll be just caught up by the time I'm in Japan.
Oh, okay.
The first or second week of August, we're caught up.
Oh, right, and is that when you're in Japan?
Yes. Well, I'm in Japan from the very end of July through the first 2 weeks of August.
Right.
So I'll be in Japan when we catch up. But that's when new episodes will go out, I'm sure. That'll be just our luck.
Yeah. But we'll have scheduled, as discussed, we will go to 1 a week and do, topic episodes or whatever. Yeah. So there will be... You're still going to get content when Dan's away. It will just be weekly as discussed, except when episodes are.
I've just looked at the time, see we've got over an hour, and I've just thought to myself, that's hilarious. People are going to be like, looking at like last week's episode, which deals with Rose and all this like backstory, they'll be like, 45 minutes. The big show, an hour? I reckon if you take out all of our tangents, it's a normal 40-minute episode of this podcast.
I'll tell you what, the problem with what the hell was it called? You've just named it. What was the last week's episode called?
Oh, Your Mother and Mine.
Your Mother and Mine. The problem with Your Mother and Mine is actually the only way to dissect that would be to go frame by frame. And we don't have the episodes in front of us as we do this. That's the best way to analyse that episode, because there's just so much.
Yeah, 100% agree.
Yeah. Right, there you go. Bumper. This has been The Big Show, because it's longer. Yeah.
There you go. I got it. I get that reference. So that's been everything for this week. I'll give you a little hint, actually. I'll tell you a little tease for next week, Chris.
Please.
I think pool hopping of this set of sort of 5 episodes, because they came out as one in March this year, from Your Mother and Mine through to, I think, an episode called Letters to Lars. I think it's 4 of them, maybe 5. The next episode is my favourite of that set.
Oh, really? Because it doesn't... Yeah. Pool hopping isn't an overly intriguing title, so that's good.
Yeah, it's not. And I guess maybe that's part of why I liked it so much. Keep in mind, I haven't seen this since I originally watched it, because I only watched it 2 months ago, 3 months ago. But in the context of this run of 4, this one really stood out to me. We'll talk about it obviously next week, but I really enjoyed this next episode. It's one of my personal favourites, although I acknowledge that's probably a very personal reaction, because I didn't see the level of excitement I felt for this next episode, I don't believe, in the Reddit. People were mostly still talking about Your Mother and Mine.
But fair enough.
So yeah, that's yeah. But yeah, we'll be back next week. So that's everything for this episode. I've been Dan Doolan.
I've been Chris Billingham.
We'll speak to you next time as we discuss pool hopping.